I'm Shane White, and this is The Process. Hey gang, Shane White here with another edition of The Process. Today I'm working on a cover for a book called The Realm. It's a urban fantasy by Jeremy Hahn and Seth Peck, and it's a great series from Image Comics. I've really been enjoying this series since the first issue came out a few months back, so if you get a chance, head down to your local comic shop and check it out. If you're a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons, this really hits on all those points. Today I'm working on a Stonehenge Paper, and it's a technique that I've been toying with for quite some time. I have this project that I've been working on for a very long time, like most of my projects. The technique, it's hard to explain because it's like I have to not pencil too much, which is really hard because you have to pull back on a lot of the detail and then let all that detail come in through the inking. And I've been trying to reach this point in my career and my skill set where you might realize as an artist, there's a point where you have to let go. And letting go is really tough. It's almost like the feeling you get when you tip back too much on your chair and you're about to fall, but you catch yourself. It's that anxiety, the edge of anxiety and that edge of freedom and risk. And I think as an artist, we're always challenging ourselves with that. For me, this technique is something I've been wanting to fully develop, but let's just face it, I've been scared. It's not like I'm gonna kill somebody or there's gonna be any terrible outcome, but I think when you start a project, you want a style that works for you and that you can rely on it consistently. Considering that this paper is like $3 a sheet, it's not something you want to go in lightweight, you know? For me, I have an idea of how this might work out, and one of those things is if I screw up, you know, you can't just white it out because that is also part of this technique, is the white gouache phase. And with this, I could correct it digitally, but then you're going back and forth between traditional and digital, and it makes the entire project go so much slower. For me, it's a matter of, well, if I made a mistake, I could cut out the paper and overlay it on the section that needed to be redrawn or reworked, and then try to clean up those edges digitally. But as you can see here, I'm usually fairly in control of the piece. I'm going in doing a lot of dry brush technique, which is something I haven't really covered in my inking style techniques that I've done before. This is a product of the paper itself. It's a thirsty paper. It's something I call a thirsty paper, where there's a lot of sizing. And so your brush will just create this nice texture as you whip it across the page. So I'm really enthusiastic about this style. So to further expand on the idea of technique here, even this cover was a buildup of courage. Even with the technique that I had planned on doing, it's still penciled a little more tightly than I would have wanted to. You know, that's something that I'm hoping to break away from the more I do it. For the realm, Jeremy has chosen 3 covers that I sent him roughs for, and I was very happy about that because that gives me a chance at least 3 times to get this right. I've already done this cover and the second cover, which is even a little more different than this first cover, and I'm currently working on the third cover where the situation is a little more complex. So I had to pencil it a little more than I really would, but we'll see. It's just the learning process in trying a new technique, especially with something that people seem to really like. They've seen this in my portfolio, and they always stop at this, and they're like, well, why don't you do comics like this? I'm like, I'm trying. It's not easy. It's just so unreliable. You know, if it was a better artist, I'm sure they could probably handle it, but me, my head's not screwed on straight half the time. With this, I've got a couple things that I'm trying to do, and one of them is to do a lot of the drawing in ink. The other is to create texture, detail that is really, really fine. I was hoping, if this project ever gets picked up, that to have it being an oversized book, because there's going to be a lot of detail that may not be picked up in a small, regular-sized comic. Also, the technique requires the final pass of white gouache and details where you put in the lighting and some of the just effects, because it's going to be colored simply. The idea is that I want the paper to show through, and I want that to let the line work breathe. I want you to focus on the line work and the story. The last project I did, my sci-fi graphic novel, Brawn, which is still available on my website at shanewhite.com, was a project that took a long time to color. I hate to say it, but I'm not a colorist. It took me about 2 years to color, but it turned out the way I wanted it to, which is, if you're going to do a project, you get one shot at it usually, and just do it the way you want to. With this project, I would love to find a way to color it economically, but really for the sake of letting line work show through. I think a lot of comics these days are colored beautifully, and the line work is really open, so it puts a lot of effort on the colorist to make it right, and that's not something I want to do with this project. We'll see. It's still in incubation, so I have some tests to do, and I'll be presenting those at some point. This character is named Will, and he's the lead character. I believe he's a scout for some of the characters in the book, The Realm. And I just wanted to draw a dragon throwing a car around like a dog would throw a toy. I just thought the scale of that would have been amazing if it were a live action thing. So it was just a great opportunity to try something fun and new, and something I hadn't seen before on the covers of the book. Typically when I start a project, something that I've written, or if I'm collaborating with somebody, I try to come up with a style that fits the story. The idea around that is it should speak to the elements in the story and be able to carry it in a way that is distinct from maybe any other story. It's just like a director working with actors, actors making choices of character. And I believe that the line work and coloring and the entire package is its own character. And in that, it's up to me to assimilate into a new style that best serves the story. However, that's not always helpful for most people. Most people have a set style that they're really comfortable working in, and that's fine. And sometimes it can be a universal thing, but sometimes if you have a really slick style and you want to do a horror book or something, it doesn't necessarily translate. Say you wanted to do something that was a little more gritty and realistic, but you have a cartoony style. The idea of meshing those two worlds together will make something interesting ultimately, but it may not have the serious tone. And I think that's what I do when I'm looking at styles, is that I'm trying to find the tone of the story and trying to find something that best fits to serve the story. Even when I'm doing storyboards, it's important to get the feel down for the client, whether it's something gritty and street or urban, or something a little more fun and polished. It's ideal to really hone in on that and to nail it, as it were. Like most of the projects that I work on, I tend to use one brush, which I'm hoping to break away a little bit more with this technique. The hope is to incorporate many things, more textures, whether it's oil rags and thumbprints and sticks and whatever else. I want this to feel very organic and very freeing. It'll take a while to get there, but it's just a matter of time. Like I said, the more I do the technique, the more it becomes a part of me, and that's all good. Years ago when I did my graphic novel, Things Undone, I was drawing things in a cartoonier style, and so a lot of the heads were larger. The project was going to be more of a manga-sized book format, and after drawing, 90 pages or so over the course of 3 to 8 months, I ended up having a real issue with drawing large heads on real people when I went to switch back. And so again, like if you're doing a technique or a style that changes the way you may naturally draw, it may also require some downtime for you to sort of reprogram yourself or get back to where you were before the project started. So definitely try to allow for that time. And in this case, I probably should have jumped into hardcore figure drawing just, 7 days a week as often as I could, just to sort of break those habits. We're getting close to the finish of this, and I hope you like what you see. I'm going to be exploring more of this in the next 2 videos for the realm, and hopefully you can see some other insights to the project that I'd like to pitch. As always, thanks for watching. And please, if you have more questions, feel free to leave a comment below. And also, don't forget to subscribe to The Process.